Hello, welcome to Burdock Radio. I'm your host, Keith Gostad. And with me today is Jay Hildebrand and Ian Tusky. Well, before I get into that, I guess I gotta read this disclaimer. Welcome to Burdock Radio. My name is Keith Gostad. I said that earlier. I'm the producer of this show. Things you will hear over the next hour represent the views of Burdock Radio and the people making them. All opinions, quotations in no way represent River West Radio and are the sole responsibility of the producer, guests, and callers. River West Radio is not liable for any legal issues arising from the content of this program. Okay, now that that's done. Hi, guys.
How's it going?
Hi.
And you guys are both students at UWM's classical guitar program, right?
That's right.
Okay, now, what's the full name of the program before I get it all wrong here?
Well, it's UWM Peck School of the Arts classical guitar program, which is part of the larger guitar department.
Okay.
Which is a whole host of other things.
You know what? Say that again.
UWM guitar program. It's part of the Peck School of the Arts.
Okay.
It's a classical guitar program, which is part of the larger guitar department.
Fantastic. All right. And Jay, you were from Washington State originally.
Yeah, that's correct.
And you taught there in Washington for a couple of years, and then you came over here for the graduate program, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea there was a graduate program for this. And
I actually didn't either.
Okay.
I was lucky to have studied with a teacher in Washington who knew the professor at UWM here, and he recommended that I come check it out. So I came and visited and was sold on my first visit, yeah.
And how long had you been playing guitar before you even started going into classical guitar, I guess? I'm curious about the evolution of these things for different people, because you start off playing an instrument, and then once you get good at it, you probably decided to go a certain direction with, how you played it.
Absolutely, yeah. I started in 6th grade with jazz, rock, classical a little bit. But I really was into jazz and blues and Nirvana, especially.
Washington State.
Yes, of course. And then I got into classical sometime in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then from there, you just kind of chose to study it.
Yeah, I decided to study it in college. And
Okay. Ian, what's the story on you, man? How'd you get into classical guitar?
It's a simple story. Oh, classical guitar, yeah. I was like 13, I think, when I first started playing guitar, and I saw the movie School of Rock with Jack Black, and then I saved up and I bought my first electric guitar, started a band with some friends, and then I eventually got into heavy metal. Randy Rhoads, power metals more specifically, but Randy Rhoads, Zakk Wylde, and like Joe Satriani, and they had all studied some amount of classical guitar. So I thought to myself, like, okay, if I really like this stuff, I want to play it, maybe I should study classical guitar like these guys did. So I ended up finding a teacher in my hometown who ended up not being great, but enough to kind of expose me to the music, and I ended up just falling in love with it. And then when I was about 16, that's when I really got serious and decided that's what I wanted to do for my life. So
Okay. And like this is interesting to me, because we were talking about this a bit before the show. The Peck School of the Arts has 4 different styles of guitar programs, I guess, 4 different programs of guitar. And it's classical, jazz, fingerstyle, and flamenco. And you can take classes from each discipline, and that counts towards your program. I mean, you have to obviously structure it so that you're taking more classical, I assume.
Yeah.
So, Jay, which have you dipped into any of the other 3?
Yeah. Since I've been here, only 1 year I haven't. Most colleges in the country have programs in classical and jazz, and so it is really unique here in UWM that we have 4 different areas of focus. I guess I've been lucky to just be surrounded by all this diversity in the guitar world, but I haven't actually studied any formally yet. But in college, all the undergrads here, though, they do get the chance to take lessons in a secondary style they're choosing. So In college, I had sort of the same option, so I did jazz.
And have you, Ian, dabbled at all in the flamenco style or fingerstyle programs?
Yeah, I took, for like the required 2 years of a secondary style, I studied jazz with Don Linke and Pete Billman. And then actually this semester I started studying flamenco guitar,
Okay.
which I like because it's nylon string, which is same. It's very similar to classical. Technically, a lot of techniques are shared, and a lot of classical music, especially from Spain and some from Latin America to some extent, is influenced by flamenco music. So it's valuable even as a classical performer to learn that style.
Okay. Ordinarily, I should go back a little bit and backtrack. You play a lot with Hazon Clough. Was going to be here scheduled, but he was down with the flu.
He is sick.
He is sick right now, so we give a shout out to Hazon.
Yeah.
And so usually when you get to play out, you play with him. And what kind of music do you, as a duo, play?
Yeah, we started playing together about a year ago now, or a little bit more. And sort of like the reason why we decided to start playing together was we wanted to play music written somewhat recently, and by recently for classical music is like the last 75 years or so.
Right.
And so we play a lot of Latin American music, music composed by non-classical guitarists, non-classical musicians. Sometimes we play music written by jazz musicians for classical guitar. Classical music based on a lot of flamenco music, some piazzolla tangos. And the goal there was to really take classical music kind of out of the sort of recital hall context and play, as much in the community, in the community as possible. So.
Oh, yeah. And this is a really great chance in some ways because if anybody doesn't know, at the River West Film and Video where this is recorded and broadcast from, we're right in a storefront window. So we have our interviewees up here performing right in front of the street. So without getting too much into it, would either of you gentlemen like to play a number?
Yeah.
Sure.
Who would like to go first, I guess?
Yeah, I'll go, sure.
Ian?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess give us the name of the piece you're about to play, the time it was written, and I don't know.
The era, the epoch.
Yeah, we got to put a dot on the map of time for this one. So.
No, I'm going to play a piece by a Spanish composer. He was a guitarist. He was blind from birth, actually. Wrote in the 19th century, Jiménez Manjón. It's a piece called Aire Vasco. And it's based on a Spanish folk song that he heard at some point while he was traveling through Spain. He was in the countryside. And he loved the melody. It's very simple, and he ended up harmonizing it. And then sort of composed this whole classical work based on this one simple melody and sort of turned it into something much bigger. So yeah, this is Aire Vasco by Jiménez Manjón.
That's great. I really I should emphasize to everybody that this is a very much a community radio station, and that there's a lot of chatter and roaring of buses going by and
that's good,
everything.
though, yeah.
So I think it's kind of cool, though.
No, absolutely.
It makes it this kind of, it just adds to the performance, I think.
No, I think I agree.
In some
I
way.
think classical music is often like stigmatized as this thing that you sit down, you shut up, and you listen to it.
Mhm.
And I think that there may be a place for that, and maybe if you're in a recital, okay, that's kind of the normative kind of behavior, but I don't think there's any reason why it can't be somewhere, anywhere, and appreciated by everybody. Yeah.
Right. One of the things, Jay, that you had talked about that you particularly enjoyed about the program was the diversity of the people attending, the fact that it is very much a global, well, really, it's like, what do you say, the only fingerstyle program that you can get a master's degree in, I think?
Yeah.
Like you can actually study. And
In
that's
the
just
whole world, I think.
Right, and that's just
Yeah.
one of the 4 programs that's offered there, so it's like really kind of fascinating. That I'm assuming draws a lot of people from around the world there. So
Yeah, we have people in the guitar program from Puerto Rico, from Cuba, from Vietnam, Iran,
Finland.
New Zealand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had
All over the
in the
place.
past, a lot of South Americans, Uruguay, Argentina,
Yeah. And then Milwaukee. too.
Milwaukee, Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah, so it is really neat to be a part of this program because you get the sense that people from different countries have a different take a lot of times on the same styles of music or how to practice. Stuff like that varies from culture to culture. So it's very interesting being a part of such a diverse place, and we all kind of learn from each other in some cool ways.
So Jay, I was going to ask you if you would like to favor us with a...
Sure. Yeah, I'll play a piece from Argentina. The guitar came to South America largely through Spain, right? And so a lot of the characteristics of a lot of Southern American music is kind of has roots in Spanish music. And this piece also, though, is influenced by a lot of folk music in Argentina. This is the first movement of Carlos Guastavino's Sonata No. 1 for guitar.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Yeah. It always feels weird when it's just one guy's clapping, but you know,
Two of us.
just get two of us going here, yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about the diversity of the pieces that you guys play too, because we talked about the amazing number of people that come through the program at UWM, but the thing that draws you to classical music in and of itself is being able to play music throughout all different eras, really. And so I just wondered if you guys wanted to touch on that. I'll go with Ian first.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, just now, like, you know, Jay played, you know, a sonata by an Argentinian. I played a piece by a Spanish composer. And then you can play pieces by people, you know, who lived 400 years ago. And so it's exciting because each sort of, you know, area of music has its own nuance, sort of technique and sort of musicality that you have to take into account. And then also it's a way to kind of get to know sort of the time that the pieces were composed, and just seeing sort of the sort of evolution of, you know, Baroque music to classical music, which was very, very neat, very orderly, and then shifting into the 19th century when you had all that romanticism and very kind of raw emotion. It's just fun to see the evolution and to be able to, you know, explore it with the way we have, which is by playing it on the guitar.
So. And you were talking a bit about that too, Jay, just being able to play different stuff throughout the different periods. Do you have like a favorite period that you like to go to?
Oh,
Yeah, it's a tough one.
that is tough. I think I like all periods the same. I mean, they're
It's very diplomatic of you.
Yeah. No, I really enjoy a lot of music that's being written now. Certainly in the last like 50 years, we have some really interesting music coming out for the guitar. I mean, guitar was just as much a part of like the avant-garde movement in the 60s in music, and a whole host of other like kind of what maybe the majority of people would consider kind of out there styles, but I find those to be really interesting and kind of inspiring in different ways, you know.
And the other thing too is that the guitar, because it's so often a folk instrument, when you put it in a classical context, and you know what we do is we play music, you know, classical music, but a lot of the music lends itself well to having composers take, you know, elements of folk music, elements of popular music, and add that into their you know, quote unquote classical compositions. You know, composers from Mexico like Manuel Ponce will take, you know, music he heard on the streets of Mexico City and put those melodies into these, you know, sonatas he's writing for classical guitar. And so that sort of thing is also cool to sort of experience and learn about as you play.
And those different elements of folk music from different cultures are part of what makes each composer's pieces sound so distinctive, I imagine.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
Also, there's a certain emotionality that goes into composition that, you know, I'd never thought about it much until I started to see interviews with different composers talking about their pieces that they would compose themselves.
Yeah.
And I can't even remember his name now, but it was some guy who's talking about how he hated conducting his own stuff because it was embarrassing, you know. And you know, and I thought that was kind of an interesting thing because I guess the layperson who doesn't know a lot about classical music, they would never pick up on something like that.
Yeah.
But I imagine you guys studying it probably see that a little bit more than the average person. Does that affect your playing as well? Like,
yeah, I mean, the more you know about a composer, you know, everything you can never know what the intent was behind this or that, but, you know, the more you know about the composer and the time of their life they were composing something, and maybe why they composed it, if it's an elegy, who, you know, did someone close to them die, something like that, you know, it allows you to get more connected to the music, you know.
And then there's so it is interesting and often like revealing and inspiring and sort of provokes ideas when you study about the composer, what he's surrounded by when he's writing the pieces. But then ultimately, I mean, it's like, who is to say what the music means anyway? Even the composer, I don't think, has the ultimate say for what a piece of music means or is portraying. So it's, there's that too.
It's fluid, yeah.
Yes, very fluid.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, is there anybody, I guess I'll go to Jay on this, without using the term favorite, because we don't like to say that necessarily. Is there any composer that you're particularly drawn to at this point that you find yourself going over, I mean, not even just playing, but even listening to?
Yeah. I just studied Benjamin Britten. He was a British composer in the 20th century. I studied him for a class last semester, and I was really fascinated by the tonal harmonic language that he uses. And I'm right now, I can't play it unfortunately, but I'm just learning a piece by him that he wrote for guitar. And I'm really fascinated by it. It's theme and variations of sorts on a John Dowland lute song. John Dowland was an English lute composer from the early 17th century. And this piece is inspired by that, but it's also this weird, like, tormented sort of nightmarish visions on this lute song. It's very interesting, very thought-provoking. So I'm really into his music right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Ian, is there anybody that you're particularly drawn to?
It changes, as I get older. But no, right now, and for a while actually, one composer that I've kind of continuously been drawn to is Domenico Scarlatti. He's a Baroque composer, composed entirely for sonatas for keyboard instruments, so never for the guitar. But his sonatas are often transcribed for the guitar. A lot of guitarists play them. And I've always found his music very accessible and very melodic. And it's Baroque music, but I always found that it sort of was, for me at least, even before I was into classical music, listening to his sonatas and not knowing what I was hearing, I was really drawn to them just because the melodies were all very clear, and I think can speak to a lot of people, even if, you don't know anything about, classical harmonic progressions and things like that. It's still, I think, a wide array of people can take something from it.
Okay.
Sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
If only we could hear.
Some Scarlatti?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
That's good. You got a future in radio, Jay.
Yeah, that was
your
smooth.
segue was untouchable.
Yeah.
That was slick. See, I'm going to have to turn the mic over at some point.
Well, I suppose now that, Jay put me on the spot, so I will play Sonata in E major by Domenico Scarlatti.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so that's who I've been digging lately, I guess.
See, that's just too smooth. It's a guy that I like. I'll play one of his pieces. All right. So, you guys are both, and I wanted to touch on this, award-winning guitar players, too.
I suppose, yeah. I don't know.
You got some rankings going on here. I don't know who wants to start,
Jay's
I'll
older,
start
so he's
because-
just
waving their glory
because
flags
Ian's is
here.
better.
No, that's
Save the
no,
best for
not
last.
at
So
all.
mine, I won a competition in Washington State called Music Fest Northwest. It was a concerto competition.
What concerto did you play?
I played the Tedesco concerto.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
wow. That's amazing. That's a very difficult concerto. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. It was really fun. I really enjoyed that festival because we had the competition had a few different components, including like a sight reading component. We had I was up on stage in front of a bunch of people, and the judge handed me a piece of music and gave me like a minute or two to look it over, and then I had to play it, and that was actually one of the most fun musical experiences I can remember.
Wow.
It was really, really fun. Yeah.
How long did you have to figure out the piece that you had to play?
About a minute.
Really?
A minute
Were
and
they
a
sitting
half.
there with a timer, or?
Well, he gave me the piece, and then he kind of was talking to the audience, sort of talking to them about like how sight reading works and how you should go about it. So it was kind of nice because he was like kind of in a way telling me how I should be doing what I was just about to do. So it actually did help. So
Okay.
yeah.
And Ian, I got to get you closer to the mic here. I'm sorry, I've been moving
That's okay,
things
yeah.
around. We've only got 3 mics here at this, so I'm pointing them at the guitars sometimes, and then I'm trying to point them at faces, and things are getting rearranged here. So that's amazing. First of all, I have to go back and sight reading that stuff. Had you at all been familiar with the piece prior to that?
No, it was in a style that I was familiar with, which
Okay.
was super helpful, of course. But
All right. And then Ian's glory flag is. I don't know what else to say.
No, that's great.
Forcing you guys to wave them yourselves.
That
too.
works. Yeah.
That's how good of a host I am. I'm not like by any means allowing you to be demure at all. It's like, oh, you got to talk about yourself. a
No
little bit.
modesty allowed.
No modesty.
All right. No, this past summer, I went to Houston, Texas, for the Classical Minds Guitar Festival and Competition. It's like a 5-day festival where anybody can, you sign up and go take classes, technique classes, master classes, private lessons, and then along with it, there's a guitar competition. I was in the undergrad division, and I was lucky enough to win. So it's part of the Texas Music Festival,
Okay.
which is an orchestral music festival in Texas.
I have to imagine there's a lot of people in the
There were
competition.
25-ish, 30 maybe. From all over the place. There was someone from Puerto Rico, but all really nice people, which is at competitions is always nice.
So it wasn't like you couldn't make a movie about it, really. There's nobody that's.
maybe not enough drama.
No. Okay.
no, no.
There's not a lot of drama in the classical guitar world.
Well, there can be, but it's never drama anyone else would be interested in. I don't think nails breaking, something like that. That's considered a big
Somebody
deal.
sneaks into your guitar bag and detunes it.
No.
Oh no! I just tuned it.
Nails breaking is the most dramatic thing that I can think of people complaining about. I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed you guys have particularly long thumbnails on your
Yeah,
picking
mine
hands,
actually just
so-
broke recently. But
Uh-oh.
it's still long enough, so.
Okay, so you're still able to do it. Oh, talk about your guitars a little bit, guys. Like, what's the? Are these? Do they have names, or what do classical guitarists do? And where do you get your guitars?
This is Ian Jr.
Because I'm looking at them. They don't look like the guitars that my buddies have.
Right. Well, to begin with, I mean, the classical guitar really is the Spanish guitar. So if you imagine like a nylon string acoustic guitar, that's basically what you're thinking of here. Both of our instruments are actually kind of feature like some modern, like really pretty recent innovations in guitar building, which is one really exciting thing about the guitar is that the construction is constantly evolving compared to some other instruments which have peaked, in the 18th century in terms of construction. So my guitar, the resonating board of the guitar is actually made of a sandwich with 2 really thin layers of wood surrounding a layer of this honeycomb material called Nomex. So the overall thickness of the top is no thicker than a normal top, but the result is a lighter and stronger soundboard. So that's one really interesting thing about mine, and Ian can tell you about his too.
Yeah, I know less about guitar construction than Jay, but with classical guitars, there's 2 basic kinds of wood that luthiers use, spruce and cedar. And spruce is a very, it's going to be a brighter sound, clearer, and cedar is going to be a little darker, more mellow, but also a little richer sound. And so it depends on the player, like how they play naturally. If maybe they're a very bright player naturally, they want a cedar top so that it's not too naily. But so that kind of depends on preference. Mine is a cedar made by John Price, who is an Australian luthier. And I just acquired this in June, so I haven't had it that long. But he's very much been an innovator with guitar construction. I'm not equipped to go into the details on that, but it is, it's cedar guitar.
But these are like handmade.
They're all handmade.
Yeah, and so you can't get like mass-produced guitars to do this sort of music. It would be like kind of not good sounding, maybe, or.
They tend to be not as high quality, of course, because every guitar is very different, and so to have a really fine instrument, it really takes a lot of personal attention for each instrument to make each instrument really, really that high level. So yes, the most performing guitarists will perform on handmade instruments. I should give the shout out to Kenny Hill for building mine.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's great. So one more thing I wanted to go with, because we're getting to about the 12 minutes left in the show mark, which doesn't seem like much, but it's like, I don't know, I got to wind it down at some point because I wanted to close with music. The accessibility of classical music to the general population, it's kind of difficult now to hear some, especially live, to a certain extent. You have to know where performances are happening, and if you're not kind of plugged into a school or know somebody in a school, it's difficult to know when a performance is happening. It's difficult to know when an affordable one, if you're of a lower income level like myself.
And both of us.
And both of you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, part of that is why part of the reason I ask people to come on the show so that I can hear them play.
That's a good idea.
It's easy to have it's good to have a radio show once in a while.
Yeah.
But the accessibility of classical music and just out in public, and you guys are kind of working, or the program is kind of working to make it more accessible to people in general.
Exactly.
And you were talking about the program having kind of a funding. I got to go back. I can't remember how I was supposed to explain it.
We've got some potential funding from a guitar string manufacturer to teach guitar, like after-school guitar classes in local high schools. So we're really excited about that. We're getting that started hopefully within the year. We're visiting right now high schools and playing guitar for them, and so we're really looking forward to that.
Yep.
And then we should also say that there are, thankfully, a lot of guitar performances that happen at the Peck School of the Arts at UWM, and they're relatively affordable too. So if you are interested, there is a website, the Peck School of the Arts website.
Yeah,
you can access that through.
We'll link that up on the Burdock Radio too.
Excellent, great.
On the page.
That has links to all the performances coming up. I know there's one tomorrow night, Friday.
Okay.
Friday evening with our Professor Rene Izquierdo and the world famous mandolinist Carlo Alonso.
Wow.
Yeah.
And also, there's the guitar organization, at UWM. So we do 2. They're called event grants each semester. Basically, we bring in a guest artist.
Okay.
From different parts of the world. Right now, this semester, we have coming a guitarist who's in San Jose, Stephen Lin, and we have a guitar duo from Chile.
Okay.
And those concerts are always free for students. And so of any school, UWM or an elementary school, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So that's something we do as well. And it's $5 otherwise, so they're never...
That's pretty affordable.
Yeah, they're never terribly expensive.
For world famous.
Yeah, and there's people coming from all
yeah.
over the place. And that's something that, we wanted to do is keep it... We don't want it to only be music for people who have a big income.
Sure.
Because otherwise, people like me and Jay couldn't see the concerts either. So.
Right. Well, luckily you guys know how to play some of this music, so you can just put on your own concerts if you need to. So, Jay, you were going to close the show out for us here.
Yeah.
Sure. About 4 or 5 minutes left here.
Okay, I'll play 5 minutes, 4 minutes.
I think it's 4 now. Yeah.
Okay, I'll play a piece. Let's see, 4 minutes. Yeah, I'll play a Spanish piece. All right, this is En Los Trigales by Joaquin Rodrigo.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Jay and Ian.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
This has been a really great hour. Thanks, everyone, for listening to Burdock Radio. We'll be back next week with guest Jordan Lanner.